Mr. Merrill, with much presence of mind, directed his son, while his wife guarded the opening of the door with her axe, to empty the contents of a feather bed upon the fire. The dense smothering smoke filled the flue of the chimney. The two savages, suffocated with the fumes, after a few convulsive efforts to ascend, fell almost insensible down upon the hearth. Mr. Merrill, seizing with his unbroken arm a billet of wood, dispatched them both. But one of the Indians now remained. Peering in at the opening in the door, he received a blow from the axe of Mrs. Merrill which severely wounded him. Bleeding and disheartened, he fled alone into the wilderness, the only one of the 8 who survived the conflict. A white man, who was at the time a prisoner among the Indians, and who subsequently effected his escape, reported that when the wounded savage reached his tribe, he said to the white captive in broken English: "I have bad news for the poor Indian. Me lose a son, me lose a broder. The squaws have taken the breech clout, and fight worse than the Long Knives." But the Indians were not always the aggressors. Indeed, it is doubtful whether they would have ever raised the war whoop against the white man, had it not been for the outrages they were so constantly experiencing from unprincipled and vagabond adventurers, who were ever infesting the frontiers. The following incident illustrates the character and conduct of these miscreants. A party of Indian hunters from the South, wandering through their ancient hunting grounds of Kentucky, accidentally came upon a settlement where they found several horses grazing in the field. They stole the horses, and commenced a rapid retreat to their own country. 3 young men, Davis, Caffre, and McClure, pursued them. Not being able to overtake the fugitives, they decided to make reprisals on the first Indian they should encounter. It so happened that they soon met 3 Indian hunters. The parties saluted each other in a friendly manner, and proceeded on their way in pleasant companionship. The young men said that they observed the Indians conversing with one another in low tones of voice, and thus they became convinced that the savages meditated treachery. Resolving to anticipate the Indians' attack, they formed the following plan. While walking together in friendly conversation, the Indians being entirely off their guard, Caffre, who was a very powerful man, was to spring upon the lightest of the Indians, crush him to the ground, and thus take him a prisoner. At the same instant, Davis and McClure were to shoot one of the other Indians, who, being thus taken by surprise, could offer no resistance. The signal was given. Caffre sprang upon his victim and bore him to the ground. McClure shot his man dead. Davis's gun flashed in the pan. The Indian, thus narrowly escaping death, immediately aimed his gun at Caffre, who was struggling with the one he had grappled, and instantly killed him. McClure in his turn shot the Indian. There was now 1 Indian and 2 white men, but the Indian had the loaded rifle. McClure's was discharged, and Davis's missed fire. The Indian, springing from the grasp of his dying antagonist, presented his rifle at Davis, who immediately fled, hotly pursued by the Indian. McClure, stopping only to reload his gun, followed after them. Soon he lost sight of both. Davis was never heard of afterwards. Doubtless he was shot by the avenging Indian, who returned to his wigwam with the white man's scalp. McClure, after this bloody fray, being left alone in the wilderness, commenced a return to his distant home. He had not proceeded far before he met an Indian on horseback accompanied by a boy on foot. The warrior dismounted, and in a token of peace offered McClure his pipe. As they were seated together upon a log, conversing, McClure said that the Indian informed him by signs that there were other Indians in the distance who would soon come up, and that then they should take him captive, tie his feet beneath the horse's belly, and carry him off to their village. McClure seized his gun, shot the Indian through the heart, and plunging into the forest, effected his escape. About this same time, Captain James Ward, with a party of half a dozen white men, one of whom was his nephew, and a number of horses, was floating down the Ohio River from Pittsburg. They were in a flat boat about 45 feet long and 8 feet wide. The gunwale of the boat consisted of but a single pine plank. It was beautiful weather, and for several days they were swept along by the tranquil stream, now borne by the changing current towards the one shore, and now towards the other. One morning, when they had been swept by the stream within about 150 feet of the northern shore, suddenly several hundred Indians appeared upon the bank, and uttering savage yells, opened upon them a terrible fire. Captain Ward's nephew, pierced by a ball in the breast, fell dead in the bottom of the boat. Every horse was struck by a bullet. Some were instantly killed. Others, severely wounded, struggled so violently as to cause the frail bark to dip in the water, threatening immediate destruction. All the crew, except Captain Ward, were so panic stricken by this sudden assault, that they threw themselves flat upon their faces in the bottom of the boat, and attempted no resistance, where even the exposure of a hand would be the target for 100 rifles. Fortunately, Captain Ward was protected from this shower of bullets by a post, which, for some purpose, had been fastened to the gunwale. He therefore retained his position at the helm, which was an oar, striving to guide the boat to the other side of the river. As the assailants had no canoes, they could not attempt to board, but for more than an hour they ran along the banks, yelling and keeping up an almost constant fire. At length the boat was swept to the other side of the stream, when the miscreants abandoned the pursuit and disappeared. Quite a large party of emigrants were attacked by the Indians near what is now called Scagg's Creek, and 6 were instantly killed. A Mrs. McClure, delirious with terror, fled she knew not where, followed by her 3 little children and carrying a little babe in her arms. The cries of the babe guided the pursuit of the Indians. They cruelly tomahawked the 3 oldest children, and took the mother and the babe as captives. Fortunately, the tidings of this outrage speedily reached one of the settlements. Captain Whitley immediately started in pursuit of the gang. He overtook them, killed 2, wounded 2, and rescued the captives. Such were the scenes enacted during a period of nominal peace with the Indians. There has been transmitted to us a very curious document, giving an account of a speech made by Mr. Dalton, a government agent, to a council of the Indian chiefs, upon the announcement of peace with Great Britain, and their reply. Mr. Dalton said: "My children, what I have often told you is now come to pass. This day I received news from my great chief at the Falls of the Ohio. Peace is made with the enemies of America. The white flesh, the Americans, French, and Spanish, this day smoked out of the peace pipe. The tomahawk is buried, and they are now friends. I am told by the Shawanese, the Delawares, the Chickasaws, the Cherokees, and all other red flesh have taken the long knife by the hand. They have given up to them the prisoners that were in their hands. My children on the Wabash, open your ears and let what I tell you sink into your hearts. You know me. Near 20 years I have been among you. The long knife is my nation. I know their hearts. Peace they carry in one hand, and war in the other. I leave you to yourselves to judge. Consider and now accept the one or the other. We never beg peace of our enemies. If you love your women and children, receive the belt of the wampum I present you. Return me my flesh you have in your villages, and the horses you stole from my people in Kentucky. Your cornfields were never disturbed by the long knife. Your women and children lived quiet in their houses, while your warriors were killing and robbing my people. All this you know is the truth. This is the last time I shall speak to you. I have waited 6 moons to hear you speak, and to get my people from you. In 10 nights I shall leave the Wabash to see my great chief at the Falls of the Ohio, where he will be glad to hear from your own lips what you have to say. Here is tobacco I give you. Smoke and consider what I have said." Mr. Dalton then presented Piankashaw, the chief of the leading tribe assembled in council, with a belt of blue and white wampum. Piankashaw received the emblem of peace with much dignity, and replied: "My great father the Long Knife, you have been many years among us. You have suffered by us. We still hope you will have pity and compassion upon us, on our women and children. The sun shines on us, and the good news of peace appears in our faces. This is the day of joy to the Wabash Indians. With one tongue we